The Washington Commanders are making a change at quarterback, turning back to Carson Wentz, who was their original starting quarterback to start the year, and away from Taylor Heinicke. Currently, the Commanders sit at 7-7-1 in that seventh playoff spot in the NFC. And this move happening this late in the season, and after what looked to be a resurgence in this football team, because remember, Carson Wentz is at the helm. This team is 2-4. People are talking about how Ron Rivera's job is on the line. People are talking about how Carson Wentz is washed. And then they turn to Taylor Heinicke. And look, Taylor Heinicke didn't come out and he's not doing what Brock Purdy's doing, right, over in San Francisco. But he comes in. He's doing a great job of managing games. And when the play is there to be made, he's almost always making it. And he's honestly a big part, if you look at it, of the resurgence because, to be honest with you, Carson Wentz was holding on to that ball, it seemed like, for an eternity at a time. Every time he would take a snap, he would just hold on to the ball, try to extend the play as much as he can, and then they would end up with little to no gain out of it. He would end up sacked. Granted, the offensive line is god-awful, or was god-awful at the beginning of the season. They've kind of settled in better recently, but I also think it's because what have they done now? The Commanders have leaned on the running game. They balanced out the run-pass game. They've put the ball in the hands of a guy in Taylor Heinicke who is never going to make that big crucial mistake. You know, people view Carson Wentz as the guy, okay, he's going to make some mistakes, but he's going to hit that home run ball. He's going to be able to make the big play if it's there, which fundamentally has just not been the case this season. And the Commanders now are turning away from a guy in Taylor Heinicke who at the helm was 5-3-1. You could argue is a blown referee call away from being 6-2-1 as the starting quarterback of this team and leading them to the playoffs. In the final two games of the season, they're turning back to Carson Wentz. Now, don't get me wrong. This is not me trying to bury Carson Wentz. This is not me trying to say that Carson Wentz is a bust. He's washed. None of that stuff. I'm not going to get into any of that. However, one thing that we know from Carson Wentz in years previous, you don't have to look too far. Look at last year with the Colts. When it comes to crunch time, when it comes to winning time, when it comes to securing a playoff spot, he certainly has not been the guy to do that as of recently. And my fear for the Commanders, as I know many Commanders fans are happy about this for whatever reason, and I get it. People say, watch the film. Carson was better. The offensive line is better now, and he's going to do better because Heinicke can only get you so far. I hear that, okay? I hear that, but I don't agree with it. I think the issues with Carson Wentz are that he's going to try to make the big play too many times. And because of that, he's going to be under pressure more often. Because of that, defenses are going to know to blitz him more often, and they're going to be able to get to him more often. And because of that, I think they're going to lose more often. I mean, we talk about this, right? We talk about the Washington Commanders being in a position to make the playoffs. This is a team that was not supposed to be anywhere near the playoffs because Carson Wentz was a starting quarterback. And now to end the season, they're going to be hosting the Cleveland Browns and they're going to be hosting the Dallas Cowboys. The Browns game is a winnable game even for Carson Wentz, but this team, the Commanders, really need to win both games because they have the Packers breathing down the back of their necks. They have even the Bucs. If the Bucs wind up losing to Carolina, then Carolina ends up taking that NFC South spot, and you could be in a situation where the Bucs are in play for a wild card spot. There's a lot that still needs to be settled here, and I feel like it's weird. This kind of reminds me, and I wasn't alive for this, but as far as a narrative, this reminds me of, I believe it was the 1998, or it was I think it was 99. It was the 1999 Buffalo Bills. And I remember that was the big Music City Miracle game in the playoffs. Like, they had gone on a hot streak with Doug Flutie as their starting quarterback, and apparently the decision was made. Like, Doug Flutie was like 10-6 as the starting quarterback, and they bring in, and they had already spent like a first round pick on Johnson, who at that point was their backup. They had brought him in to be the guy. He didn't end up being the guy. So Flutie takes over. He comes in, plays great, leads them to the playoffs. And Rob Johnson, who they had been paying like millions upon millions of dollars to, wasn't playing. And they were like, look, he's got more potential. And, we're paying him this money, which is the same case with Carson Wentz. So let's put him in there and see if he can make do here. And you know what happened? He went 10 of 22 in the first half with 2 turnovers, and the Music City Miracle happened, and Rob Johnson never looked back, and the Bills didn't make the playoffs for like another, I believe, like 12 or 13 years. The Washington Commanders have not even solidified the playoff spot at this point, which is what the biggest thing that worries me. I don't think they're going to make it with Carson Wentz. I hope they do, because I like Ron Rivera. I really like Terry McLaurin. He's one of my favorite players. I just don't think that they're going to make it. I don't think you bench a guy who is 5-3-1 for this team for a guy who doesn't do well under pressure. Because all respect due to Carson Wentz. He's had some really great, he shined a lot in the regular season, especially early on in Philadelphia. Whenever the pressure was on, one of 2 things happened throughout his career. What happened last year with the Colts, where he crumbled, or he got injured and he didn't have to deal with it. Happened multiple times with the Eagles. I hope the case is different here, because I think a lot of those players on the Commanders, including Taylor Heineke, including Terry McLaurin, including Robinson and that defensive line, like, they have worked really hard to get to the point where they're in the playoff conversation, where they control their own destiny. But I find it really hard. Like, to me, moving to Carson Wentz, you do it for one of 2 reasons. One, it's the Rob Johnson thing that I just explained, where he's the big money quarterback. He's the guy you traded away picks for, and you just feel like you need to get the most out of him. Either that, or Ron Rivera's tanking, and they want a top 15 pick so they can probably pick another linebacker, because God forbid they actually pick a quality quarterback. But hey, let me know, Washington fans. Let me have it in the comments section below. But also remember to hit that like button if you haven't already done so. Subscribe and hit that notification bell so you get notified whenever a new video is released.